Hello, this is Viewpoint from ABC World, and this edition will focus on a review of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's fourth book, which is the Medemer State, or Medemer Mengist. Thank you so much for watching us, and do stay tuned. And I'm Sintayo Tamrat with my co-host and colleague Binyam Getane. Latest version of Medemer book series, which is Medemer Mengist, or the Medemer State. A very warm welcome to you, Binyam.
It's really an absolute pleasure, and I feel so privileged to be here joining you in order to reflect my reflection on the latest book that Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has written, namely Medemer Mengist, or Medemer States. And I'm so happy, and I hope we're going to have a very exciting time as we delve into the very critical points which are at the table.
Well, that's nice, Bini. So before just going to the fourth one, let's give a brief account of the first three series of Medemer. The concept itself, Medemer, I think needs just to be explained some way, briefly. So Medemer, or synergy, is a mix of political and philosophical thoughts that promote unity, collective strengths, as well as principled leadership as the cornerstone of national prosperity. So the first book was published in 2019, and it underscores that ethnic, religious, ideological, and some generational gaps can be harmonized through the power of synergy, which relies on the Ethiopian values as well as universal democratic ideals. The book also emphasizes collaboration as a unifying bridge, inspiring both citizens and leaders to work together with sincerity and faith toward Ethiopian peace, prosperity, and democratic advancement. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's second book, which is Medemer Mengist, or The Path of Medemer, is another blueprint to Ethiopia's journey of transformation, detailing the political, economic, as well as social developments that brought through far-reaching reform programs and highlighting the tangible achievements realized along the way. And coming to the third book, which is Medemer Toulet, or Generation Medemer, analyzes the concept of generation within the Ethiopian context and illustrates how generational values shape a nation's destiny. The book also asserts that the new Medemer generation has a unique opportunity, a golden opportunity, to rewrite a new history by rectifying the mistakes of the previous generation while building up on their success. So Medemer generation focused on shaping a new generation of Ethiopians grounded in reform and cooperation. So we can see all the three books of the Medemer series show continuity and some sort of interdependence. I think I could also just see some sort of complementarity among the three, and we will just say a lot later about the fourth one. And now let's just go to this fourth latest book of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's Medemer ideology, which is Medemer Mengist, or the Medemer State. So Medemer Mengist, which has been released recent, I think that is on Friday last week, by the Premier, is of 418 pages, 3 parts, and 13 chapters. Bini, how did you get the fourth book, Medemer Mengist, or Medemer State?
Absolutely. First, I'd like to compliment on the very brief way of expounding the series of books in connection with what's actually happening on the ground, especially speaking of the past books written by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. They have left already their own fingerprint to the continuance of this, absolute transformative books, which everyone is reading it. So I like to compliment on that one.
Thank you.
And before also I delve into the very idea of what as Medemer says practically. I like to just see, or I like to reflect my own point of view, what makes actually this book and the Prime Minister actually also different from with the rest of the leaders that we obviously understand. The world has seen several leaders in their line of works, and these leaders have contributed their own very best and have played significant role in shaping their country for the good of the people. So there are people, including Mahatma Gandhi, Winston Churchill, and many great leaders in the world that have written books. But what makes actually this particular book quite different is nothing but those leaders of people I have mentioned have written a compilation of their own, autography and memoir. And this is absolutely different from what the other leaders have seen it. And for any critical leaders, if you search down the road, you could see how unique this approach has been. So the Prime Minister actually has come up with this point in a way to address his own experiences from the knowledge and wisdom that he has accumulated, and that actually put me in a very wondering aspect, the fact that he tries to explore all the national unity, collective actions, and the Ethiopians' path to healing. So unlike others political leaders, as I've been saying, this book reflects on the personal experience or the global conflicts. But this one, Abiy's book, is actually rooted deeply in Ethiopia's unique political and ethnic landscapes. And then Medemer, of course, as the name is there, is not just a theory, or it's a theoretical concept. It's rather a practical way or a practical vision for overcoming Ethiopia's deep division by fostering cooperation, understanding, and collective responsibility. Meantime, the book, of course, stands as part of other because it emphasizes on several segments like inclusivity with a multi-ethnic society and the belief that a shared future can build the unity, and something that's not as deeply explored in works by other leaders. That actually makes it quite different. So this, I think, personally believes that it deserves a pat on the shoulder. And while those leaders on their personal struggles in war, but the Medemer book, which is written by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, it pushes for a more forward-thinking, collaborative approach to governance, where, of course, every citizen or each citizen in community plays in a nation progress, in the building nation progress. So as a person who have actually tried to give it a touch on the area which I am very much absorbed, the book actually says a lot of things. So I see the book as both a political ideology and a call for a new era of governance, and where one unity becomes the cornerstone for Ethiopia's success, despite different challenges that the country is going through. So this differentiates Medemer from other political works, and it also offering not just kind of retrospective, but a certain kind of proactive vision for nation building, which the Prime Minister wants to realize, and along with the kind of concept that he puts in black and white.
Well, that's really a nice reflection, Bene. And let me just add a few points. This latest version of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's ideology of Medemer has brought a comprehensive and structured reflection on Ethiopia's governance and challenges and future directions. So together with the previous 3 volumes, this work forms a blueprint for Ethiopia's renaissance, bridging past reflections with future aspirations. So I can say that they together form a roadmap to Ethiopia's prosperity, and for Ethiopia, it can be just a political ideology that can feed the global political economy, which is in a very dynamic nature and in a very uncertain situation. So now let's just move on to the first part, which is named or titled Yabailij Wahatamaw.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Sorry for cutting in here, but yeah. I think it's also interesting to hammer some of the central ideas in connection with what Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has stated in his book, presenting a new model of governance, as you've said it yourself, and the national development, which is actually rooted in the Ethiopian context, based on the philosophy of Medemer, which a concept of synergy, and stating several important points that has to be hammered are already there. And this actually brings us a kind of country that everyone wants to see. And it has been clearly illustrated how we go about in order to achieve the kind of dream that the country wants to realize in the coming years.
Yeah, I think this what inspires me to read and this to go along the pages is that it has just taken some historic backgrounds why the previous leaders failed, and also their strengths, and also some development models from across the globe, and why they failed. And why that does not work for Ethiopia, and it also has some room just to discuss the present and future challenges. The future is quite uncertain.
It is.
The future, the global political and economic situation is quite uncertain, given just the very dynamism of conflict, is the climate change, some natural disasters, and some other changes.
Good.
We cannot decide on the future today, so it's uncertain. And this book, this roadmap, this blueprint has just tried to see these all aspects. So that is what inspired me, and
Absolutely.
it is also just contextualized to the local context of Ethiopia.
Good. I couldn't agree more on you, because that's very one of the points that has been discussed. And of course, there are also key pillars in the book that the author, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, tries to convey to anyone who is interested to dig deep down and see what the book is all about. For example, we can think of Medemer as a political and development blueprint, as it has been said, and it's also a call for national renewal and practical reform, rejecting different kind of imported ideologies or extreme patriotships, which is clearly stated there. And so the book is not only a philosophical guide to building an Ethiopian-centered moral progress, but it goes beyond. It goes even to the Africans, neighboring countries, who can actually take a lesson from Ethiopia. And it underscores also a very essential points, including inclusiveness, and how inclusiveness is going to play a paramount role in making the nation progressively successful for the dream that the country wants to see. In the meantime, there are also problems that are actually stated in the book, like rejecting zero-sum politics, which is not going to be very productive from the experience of Ethiopian history that has also been stated very nicely and clearly, and some efforts that the government would like to make, especially in connection with developments, like giving a great emphasis on urban developments and changes that are expected to happen at different levels. We can mention at institutional levels. There are tremendous policies and concepts.
Yeah, we must just come to that later, because we may just see a few of the chapters of the book and just give some details on that. So now let's start with the first part, which is Abai, as I told you, and which Abai means the Nile, and which translates to the son of the Abai River thirsts for water.
Yeah.
So why did the premier use this proverb? It is a popular proverb.
Yeah, I thank you again for this golden chance. As an Ethiopian, as a man before I come of age, I remember in my school days that we used to be taught such kind of local color proverbs, sayings that has got its own beauty. And they have been used and narrated. However, when we come to their practicality, how they go along with the success and the development idea, we don't see it frequently happening. And I think in Medemer state, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed confronts this paradox head on, explaining that Ethiopia's poverty actually is not simply due to external factors or bad luck, but is actually deeply related in a systematic challenge which is accumulated over decades. And saying that in one of his poignant speech that has been delivered while the book was inaugurated, the Prime Minister invoked, the Ethiopian proverb, which you have said, the son of Abai is thirsty, to highlight actually the deep paradox of a nation in a natural resource, yet mirrored in poverty. It's quite a paradox for anyone. So the Prime Minister here actually tries to echoes this proverb to awaken a collective national, consciousness about our country, Ethiopia's untapped potential and the historical, political, and structural barriers that have prevented its people from benefiting from their own wealth. We have plenty of resources which are untapped, but due to different, obvious reasons which has been listed on the book, we are unable to maximize and use it for the benefit of its individual at the end of the day that would, help the country and even go beyond. However, these mentioned reasons have been some of the factors. And first of all, decades of underdevelopment and foreign dependency have stifled Ethiopia's capacity to harness its rivals, minerals, and fertile lands, because obviously we do have a vast land which is fertile, which we could have been used for many reasons, but it is even now that we recently realize some of the development by the great and unwavering commitment of the government in its line of work as things are going on. Secondly, the internal conflicts. There is corruption, there is poor governance. These all have drained the national energy that could have been used for economic transformation. And third, a kind of limitation, a mindset limitation, the way how we see things, the mindset of limitation, believing that progress must come from outside, but it should come within. And so what the Prime Minister was saying, this has left many Ethiopians disconnected from their own power. We do have also many other way of proverbs, which I personally always surprises me, like like on the contrary, you can see Eric Kelly, I believe I can fly. This actually is not talking about a kind of bringing change, but just showing you the possibility of making or daring to change the undaring one. So what the Prime Minister underscores here, such kind of proverbs that has been limiting us due to the reasons have to be changed in a way that can benefit the country. So Abiy, or Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, use this proverb not as a mere poetry, but it's rather a challenge. And how can a son of Abai, or Africa's greatest river of,
the world's longest river,
exactly, will face such kind of play? So he questions both, the past leadership and also the people themselves. And then he tries to urge to return self-reliance and unity to achieve a visionary development. And that's very important point. I think it is also a high time that everyone got to pay a heed and think outside of the box in order to realize the kind of dream which is already stipulated there, so that at the end of the day we all gonna be beneficiary out of the successive development which is going to be there. So Prime Minister Abiy highlights that Ethiopia's development has often been hindered by a very fragmented political system that prioritizes certain groups over others, fostering inequality and mistrust, which is not helpful. So he also points inefficiencies in governance, where institutions are either weak or fail to serve all citizens equally. So social and other cultural problems as well.
Well, so you are just mentioning, I'm just going deep into that, but I think it's better to talk about the challenges that Prime Minister has just brought in the last book. He has vividly shown us the challenges the country has been grappling with since it had formal government or modern sort of government, let me say. So he just used that proverb because we know that, even the world knows that Ethiopia is blessed with abundant resources of many kinds. We have just the minerals, we have the culture, we have the water resources, we have the spirituality, we have the diversity, and more. And we have just about 128 million plus people, of which 70% is of productive force. So this is a great blessing for a country to be great again.
Again, sure.
So he has just mentioned this, and it is just because of this potential and our inability to use this potential and grow, prosper, and come to the level of the world superpowers.
Absolutely.
That the Premier is just saying this in brief.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Then now just coming to the point that he has just mentioned, like the bottlenecks that have hampered Ethiopia. Let me just give you a chance and just to reflect on this.
Well, as I was saying, of course, you have hammered the very critical points alongside what is stated on the book. And I believe as an Ethiopian history is full of different kinds, you know. There were days that we experienced civil war, conflicts, and there has been also pressure and also underdeveloped kind of leadership structure. Of course, the past has been also in its own way has been successful. The fact that it has contributed different endeavors in order to change the countries to high level progresses due to the past leadership. There has been several amazing works that has actually significantly made Ethiopia to be recognized. However, there were different kind of problems in line with social and cultural divisions, which actually exacerbates the issues limiting the country's ability.
Let's just be quite practical according to just the Medemer Mengist or the Medemer state. So the Premier just has put a very critical example. Ethiopia's economy, for example, is just largely dependent on the agriculture sector. Yeah. The agriculture has been for many years the significant contributor of the Ethiopian economy, the country's GDP. But let's see the agriculture sector. How has it come?
Well, speaking of our agriculture, we've been using the agrarian system, and it was not, of course, still I think it's now we see some flower of hops, the fact that things are not as they used to be, because in the past, as you know, we used to plow the lands and use a traditional way of practicing or plowing the lands in order to very much productive when it comes to that particular areas. And also we have manpowers. So we were a bit far away from the development of changing our products into the benefits of many. This happened because the country itself was technologically was not advanced. There was no actually sufficient raw materials that was available on that particular corner of time. In the meantime, the kind of mechanization that we use was a bit, sluggish. So now it has to be a time that everyone got to stand together and think outside of the box in order to change that paradigm shift and inculcate such productive way of bringing all the technologies that at the end of the day will shift significantly or transform significantly Ethiopia's agricultural system, by which there are mechanisms, there are methods that are being stipulated on the book. So I think in the near future, Ethiopia, despite all that pressure, problems that have been listed, we can possibly bring about absolute change that can benefit the country economically, so that it is only through that way we can possibly, and we should not be change resistant people, you know what I mean? Because for many years, if you see, for example, the farmers, and we have been also depending on the rain, while we can, technologically think in a very big horizon and come up with a solution. So I think these things will be addressed in the coming years to come, with all the unwavering commitments of the leadership and then expected, workers to be put in place.
Yeah, sure. In fact, just Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's leadership, I think, has just brought some sort of reform and tangible results in some of the aspects or the challenges as he identified there. For example, like some of Ethiopia's resources are wasted, untapped. We have huge arable land, water. We can connect these with some sort of modern agriculture systems and technologies. We have minerals untapped. We have enormous renewable energy sources we couldn't use. In fact, the grid has transformed, and there are just other hydropower projects that can transform the country's energy sector. And I think we could soon just attain the energy transition clean energy transition, I mean, and we have a huge productive manpower. So with this regard, there have been some initiatives and some changes made so far within the last 7 to 6 years. And the other important point, which in fact relates with the first one, is inadequate infrastructure, both soft and hard. And for example, here you can just mention the GERD and other hydropower projects. The book says it is not only the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam that foreign hands, I mean just foreign powers or countries are trying to intervene and just to hamper developments like that. But also other projects, mega projects of Ethiopians are just being challenged with foreign powers again. So we have just to equip ourselves with that capability that can help us withstand those pressures and just go ahead like we did with the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam.
Yeah, so I think, I'm sorry for the interruption, I think this is where the bottom line comes, because like we want to develop, we want to go forward and become the best nation in terms of many ideas, but that cannot be achieved despite all the lot and potentials, resources, whatever things you have mentioned cannot be achievable unless we come together. So the book actually urges all Ethiopians to face all this kind of challenges with honesty and courage and show where we exactly stand and aspire to the future with a very good positive thinking that can be constructively helping the country and see ourselves at the higher scale.
That's it. That's it. And another critical point, like as infrastructure, the premier put as hard infrastructure is, or they can also be mentioned as the economic drivers, development drivers, and they are like telecom services, the internet, and the AI. The country has come to some way. It's a good progress. But we have just to give more emphasis on this, he says. And most importantly, Prime Minister Abiy just tried to show how port access is critical for Ethiopia, depending on the volume of the economy the country is making or building. Okay, just let me
actually, this, of course, every time Ethiopia tries to develop its own resources, which actually still helps other country. For example, if you look at the inauguration of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, there has been a bone of contention. There has been lots of pressure from in and outside. But at the end of the day, if you see it from a healthy mindset, this GERD or the inauguration of this hydroelectric power can generate lots of energy, which has been statistically with data supported. Even African countries acclaim this achievement. But you could imagine all the kind of challenges. And with all those progress, Ethiopia has been diplomatically very amicable and keeping the line, tried to iron out all the kind of problem, but still uses without causing any significant damage to the riparian countries. But with this in mind, infrastructure is very much important, and we actually see the changes because we're not only desiring, we're needing changes, okay? We need it badly because the world is significantly changed, and a country with lots of history, why on earth not going to go forward? That is, I think, the very idea that the Prime Minister wants to transform it, making people to have a positive, mindset. And we need infrastructure. We know exactly the significant contributions that Ethiopian Airlines are actually doing, and the telecom as well. But this all could be possible if there is going to be a very collective idea that people work together to play a hands-on role. And that dream is not going to be too far to be realized.
So Ethiopia is just far behind from the world because of the change, innovation, speed the world is just going through, but we haven't been using that, and the Premier just calls with his book, we need to adopt this. We need just to pursue with change, innovation and speed, and in a complementary way.
Absolutely.
So we don't have just to leave one behind. We have just to be fast enough with our innovations to bring fast changes.
Yeah.
So it says this.
And that was I mean, an interesting point you've raised, because like I think because of these mentioned reasons that we are lagging behind. Because if you a very good example is like mentioning the practice of our agriculture. It's like growing like a carrot, I could say. The fact that we have seen insignificant changes, but if you use technologies, innovations, and creativity that can actually back up the industry, at the end of the day, everything is going to be as easy as what you want to have it on the table. Everything is going to be close to your hand. Yeah. So I think the speed is very much important, and so the Prime Minister also, in doing so, it's reminding us that there was a missing link that Ethiopia was not able to realize, and having that in mind, we need to stand on our feet to realize that and work forward to fill the gaps, fix all those problems, and see a better Ethiopia coming if things are going to be, of course, implemented. So the book actually urges all these kind of pointers.
Sure. Bini, I think we are just running against time, and coming to the third unit, we have just talked about the problems, and this third unit talks about the ways out, the governing principles of prosperity, or Medemer, and the kind of governance system required. And on the 82nd page, I have this, and I just translated myself from the Amharic version. For us to start from where the world has reached today is the only way to emerge as a globally competent nation. It will not make us competent to pick the technologies the world used and discarded for attaining next level techs, or those being abandoned. This is not a lasting solution. In general, the path we need to pursue to be globally competent is innovation and speed. So the bottom line here is to start from where the world is today.
That's what I mean. Like, that was a missing link, because there were days when technological advancements are introduced to the country. Yeah. There were different wrong assumption that was going on in the mind of a lot of people, as if technology is something evil. So that was a kind of a stereotype that people have had. But now.
Sure. Bini, let me just interrupt you here, because we don't have just the time to entertain all of the issues. And now let's move on to another critical point, which is the Medemer state industry, 7th chapter, and the manufacturing sector is the main priority sector that helps to create a middle-income society. But we lagged far behind to adapt with incoming changes in the sector. And as we know, Ethiopia has been just trying to become Africa's manufacturing hub, with export-led industries being motivated or encouraged, but not succeeded so far. And so a different path is quite necessary for several reasons, like securing maximum foreign currency, creating more jobs, and injecting more investment capital to the country. So in this regard, what a promise does the Medemer Mengist, or the Medemer State book, has brought?
Well, thank you again. For anyone who have read that particular point, the very bottom line lies or focuses on Ethiopia's urgent need to transition from a traditional, mostly agrarian economy to modern one. So in order to that one, in order to make that thing possible, industrial nation, or using industrial mechanism, is very much important. So the Prime Minister highlights that industrial development is not just a policy goal that was underscored. It was rather a national vitality. It's a necessity that he underscored, that the future of Ethiopia depends on how well we prepare today to face inevitable global challenges driven by technology, innovation, and productivity. So one of the key ideas is the most important of building a very skilled and resilient workforce, which will help the nation in progress in many ways. So the PM actually makes it clear that without this trained human capital, which is equipped with the right knowledge, technical skills, and mindset, no industrial revolution can succeed. Which actually we can compare it with other countries' experience, Japan, South Korea, Germany, and many other points. So, but here Ethiopia lacks. So it is a high time that we need to align all these important points in order to see the change that we want to see. And this is a time, according to the Prime Minister. So he calls for a shift from low-skilled manual labor to a new generation of digitally literate and technically skilled and innovation-driven workers. So that this means expanding education, vocational trainings, and promoting a productive work ethic across the country. In the meantime, another central point is the role of technology, especially in using AI, digital manufacturing, and 3D printings. These modern tools are seen as opportunities for Ethiopia in the coming year as a leapfrog for older stage for industrial development instead of other points. So the Prime Minister actually, in a nutshell, stresses this transition isn't just about factories or infrastructure, but it's about cultural and many more points.
Okay, so let me just give you the next couple of questions for you, discussion points for you. And moving to the 8th chapter, we get the role of modern cities, and what key inspiring points will you share with us from this chapter, Bini? It is just all about modern cities, smart cities, and so what role?
Yeah, I think for anyone who especially even have grown and raised in Addis Ababa, can see the changes and how important they are. So this particular chapter presents a compelling vision for how Ethiopia's cities, especially as a model taken at Addis Ababa, can become the engines of national transformation. So, because cities have got instrumental contribution, they are a catalyst for change. And speaking of this and what the Prime Minister underscores, it frames cities not just a place to live, but a hub for innovation, as you said, culture and economic development. So he calls the time the era of cities, which is, in other words, in the way that I understand, is where urban centers are central to both national and global progress. And cities can contribute a lot of things, framing cities as a place to live. And also, he argues the fact that they are the backbone of Ethiopia's transformation, and they drive innovation, connect people, and shape the country's image in the modern world. And that's what's happening, and there are great efforts in this regard. And cities also can contribute, especially when you look at smart and sustainable city design. They do have instrumental roles, because a key point in the chapter is the form and structure of the cities. You can see how Addis Ababa has transformed. It's pleasing to the eye. So many people have witnessed a significant change that's happening in the case of Ethiopia in general, in Addis Ababa in particular. But that is not remaining here, but it goes beyond other places, which we see practically right after Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed came to office. Several development activities are going on, one of which is enhancing city, because from tourism point of view also, cities can contribute lots of benefits for the country, and I think that is something that we have to recognize. And very importantly, that we should not forget is, while we are progressing, making the city so advanced and interesting, we have to take into consideration the very idea of blending the past in the future.
Yeah, sure.
Blending the past in the future. I think,
well, Bini,
this is very
I think
important point.
Let me just remind you once again that we are out of time. So let's move on to the 9th chapter, and the rest of chapters could be covered, and also just bringing some guests who will have reflections on the book. So we will do that next time. But now, as our last discussion point, the 9th chapter puts tourism as a new pillar. In fact, Ethiopia is just gifted, as we said, with enormous potential, most of which has been left untapped for so many years. And Prime Minister Abiy, cognizant of this situation and potential in transforming Ethiopia, launched several initiatives nationwide. And they have gone into fruition. So that has just added some to the country's tourism sector. I think the Premier deserves some sort of credit for this, and particularly in transforming Ethiopia's tourism sector, and for the expansion of tourism infrastructure and development, tourism destination development. So once again, in the Medemer State Book, the Premier identifies tourism as a new pillar. And what is your observation on that?
Well, it goes without saying that particularly what struck me most in this particular chapter is how candidly Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed acknowledged this historical gap and how the Medemer philosophy pushes to change. You know, the fact that we Ethiopians have lots of, potential when it comes to tourism, come to cultural, historical, what have you. But that tourism potential of ours have not been utilized in a way that other countries are, promoted. If you go to Kenya, for example, they don't have all kind of tourism activities. But come to Ethiopia, you have the cultural, the historical, the spiritual, the tangible, the intangible. All sorts of tourism blends are here. But when it comes to its use, when we see the tourism contribution, despite its instrumental role, the country has not worked hard. There could be several issues that we can mention, but very importantly, despite all these resources, now the Medemer book states the fact that it is a high time that tourism has to be transformed in a way that can promote the country at a higher level. In order to that, we have to utilize various mechanisms. One is developing infrastructure, which we have already mentioned, developing cities, because in tourism, you have what we call...
mention the Gabata Lager project.
Yeah, you do have, you have that one, the Gabata Lager, Aksum, Lalibela, you can mention, but all these things can possible if only tourists are going to be, meeting their expectation. You need to have accessibility, so you need to have infrastructure and accelerating all these things, and also, making things to happen. Ethiopians, stakeholders have to work hand in hand in order to utilize the country's tourism potential, and that also starts from telling stories. So previously, we didn't use technology that can impact the tourism sector, how we sail better our countries, okay? Traditionally, people, guides, they go travel, and then they just do it. But time has changed. Now it's a time that we have to integrate AI advancement technologies that can actually tell a beautiful and captivating story that actually sell the Ethiopian tourism in many ways. And of course, the change has been seen right after Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed came to office. We see a significant amount of transformation when it comes to tourism. You can see the points that you have mentioned. Unity Park. If you even take also as a model Addis Ababa, there are mushroom of development sectors. You can mention the parks, the Shaggar Park, the Friendship Park, Gabata Lager, and I can say a lot of things. These by themselves that contribute a lot of things. So according to Medemer and according to Prime Minister Abiy, tourism comes first and foremost. But to go forward with other countries, what do we need is nothing but we need to integrate technologies, use technological materials and manpower that can tell a compelling story about Ethiopian tourism, and at the end of the day, people can recognize where Ethiopia is. And I think this is all about a very important point that we have to underscore.
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, just other review points or just insights could be just brought to our viewers next time with other guests. And for the time, I think that is enough. And so the bottom line is that Medemer is just a new ideology that can solve Ethiopia's long-standing development and political challenges and help the country stand tall in the rapidly changing global context. For me, that is just the bottom line. And dear viewers, that winds up today's viewpoint, and that was just a review on Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's latest book, which is The Medemer State or Medemer Mangist. Thank you so much for watching us. See you another time. And I'm Sintayo Tamrat with my co-host and colleague Binyam Getane. Thank you so much.